Good morning. Happy Monday. Had a couple questions that I thought were at least interesting enough. One is Geo George asked essentially, do sovereign citizens file lawsuits? They do. And he said that then how can you call them sovereign citizens if they respect the rule of law? And of course, the problem with that is that there are some underlying premises that aren't correct. Number one, what does respect the rule of law mean? That's a good one. Number two, is not respecting the rule of law a trait inherent in all sovereign citizens? That's a good question. And three is, do you have to respect the rule of law to file a lawsuit? And the answer to that third question is absolutely not. I don't think filing lawsuits is the defining trait of a sovereign citizen, or not. One of the big things that some sovereign citizens are known for is filing vexatious lawsuits in an attempt to disqualify judges. And they'll file lawsuits against a judge to try to make the judge recuse himself and slow down the legal process. Or they'll file liens against the prosecutor and the judge, etc. Just being jerks. I think the defining trait of a sovereign citizen is to use or attempt to use the portions of the law that you like and agree with and that work for you, and to state that the rest of the laws that you disagree with are invalid based on, I don't know, God's law or natural law or whatever supposedly higher law that you can think of as a sovereign citizen. That to me is the defining trait. And I'm told I overuse the word, but I'm told that by idiots like Geo George. There are a lot of sovereign citizens in this movement, and there are a lot of sovereign citizen kind of interpretations of law in this movement. A real quick and easy example is filming in post offices. Their Poster 7 essentially restates what 39 CFR 102 blah blah blah, whatever it was, stated, and that is that filming for news purposes is allowed, and that's where they stop, and they don't continue reading because it's not useful for them to continue reading except as prohibited by personnel orders, local rules, whatever. So it's allowed except where it's prohibited. And they ignore that. They ignore the except where it's prohibited. That's a sovereign citizen kind of thing. You don't read the whole law. You argue with people who actually read the whole thing to you and say, what about the except? And you say, no, and that's it. Or you say, Joe, the security guard at my local post office lets me film, therefore filming is allowed. So that to me is more of what a sovereign citizen is, thinks, and does. Some notable traits that you could use to quickly distinguish them. If they use Black's Law Dictionary, second edition, that's a good quick way to determine they are in fact a sovereign citizen. Sovereign citizens love Black's Law Dictionary, second edition. The reason why is it's over 100 years old. 109 years old at this point. And despite what Gringa thinks, words change their meanings. Words do change their meanings, especially over time, especially as society and technology evolve around them. That's why we're not speaking Old English at this point, etc., etc. Anyway, the other thing is Colin L., who's really just not bright. He wants to argue that stare decisis is not law. It is, in fact, case law. That is another word for stare decisis is case law. Judges have to follow stare decisis. Now, he says that Dred Scott stands for the proposition that stare decisis isn't law. And well, so here's the way stare decisis works. Lower courts have to follow the rulings of upper courts, the previous rulings of upper courts. When you're preparing an appeal, you have to put in your, at least in California, you have to put in your table of contents, and it starts off with case law. And then it goes on to constitutional provisions, and then it goes on to statutes, and then it goes down to like other sources that you're citing. And the reason why it starts with case law is because the lower courts have to follow the case law, and the appellate courts need to know if you are citing any California or U.S. Supreme Court cases so that they can make sure that they follow that precedent. Now, any appellate court cases, they could theoretically overturn, or not necessarily overturn, but maybe they'll distinguish them. Maybe they will overturn them. Typically a court overturning a decision is done by a higher court or by the Supreme Court. But yes, the courts can correct any previously made judgments, previously made precedent. They can correct any mistakes by overturning it at a higher court or at a court of the same level. So the U.S. Supreme Court can overturn U.S. Supreme Court decisions. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. Stare decisis is precedent. It is case law. It is a thing. If the judges don't follow it at the trial court level, then you can appeal, because that is them not following the law. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a great day.